Okay, so we are live. Planet will start in just a moment. I know you miss us. Mayday! Come in! If anyone can hear me, my starship has been pulled into the anomaly. I find myself in a strange new world. It is a world with no sun, no stars. It is a world of anime. Comics. Here we go! Gaming. Movie. This world is the Rogue Planets. With your host, the Fat Mantis HD. Hello and welcome to Rogue Planet. I, of course, am the Fat Mantis, now in HD. And Happy New Year to everyone who I have not been able to hit up, particularly who didn't go to the New Year's show. We have that recorded. That's on YouTube. If you want to get a good laugh of watching 3 hours of me getting drunk and just falling all over myself, you need to check that out. I am, of course, here with my man, L Train. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I guess you can just call me Lo or Logie Bear is kind of my name. Either one is totally fine.
You guys have seen him.
El Bizzle Swag. Some people call me El Bizzle Swag, which is like my cool rapper name. I'm known by all sorts of cool stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And of course, he is a huge friend of mine and the channel. Often in the stream, awesome hanging out. You've probably seen him as either L or Logie Bear. I like to call him L Train.
L Train. That's a new one. I like it. I'll take it.
The unstoppable L Train.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna be discussing something that is basically like a phenomenon, and we're gonna get into what it is right now.
Yeah.
First, in the chat, Matt says, "Hail, Fat Mantis, good to see you back. Good to see you here, Matt. Thank you for having me back. It's good to be back. I had to take a little New Year's break from streaming and stuff, but I am back very much so." Connor says, "Wait, are we talking about the Velma show?" We are absolutely. Absolutely. How could we not? I hail to and guys, just so you know, this was Logan's pick. Logan was the one who told me that I had to talk Velma, and as soon as he said it, I was like, this makes total sense.
I watched about 60 seconds of the show and I immediately jumped on and was like, Mantis, you got to talk about this. I was like, there's so much here. I mean, it's just I've never hated a show so fast and so furiously in my entire life.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
Reboot TV, welcome in, holler at your boy. Why welcome in? Thank you so much, Rogue Radio, showing that love, saying hi to you, Logie. We've got it. So it's really great to have you all aboard, and so we're gonna get into it, Velma. So before we get into Velma or whatever's going on with the Velma situation. First question I have for you is, are you a fan of the old Scooby-Doo?
Oh, old Scooby-Doo is like the absolute best show. I grew up on Scooby-Doo, loved Shaggy. I thought, the whole dynamic was great. Even though it was like way before my time, I kind of watched it back when like Cartoon Network and Boomerang were still around,
And what you're about to say, I feel like we have similar situations. I feel like I watched Scooby-Doo way longer than it was appropriate to watch.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I was like in my 20s and I would still watch Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. I mean, Scooby-Doo was fantastic, and it's like the older you get, like there are moments that are like funnier and funnier because they're either like no longer appropriate or like you just understand what's going on a little bit more.
And also, I gotta say, even the ones back from like what was it, 70s or 80s or whatever, even they had humor that it wasn't until when I rewatched them as an adult I said, "Oh snap! They snuck like an adult joke."
Yeah, there's quite a bit of adult jokes, especially around like Shaggy and being a little bit of a stoner, and then like Daphne and Freddie being like always going off together, that kind of thing. There's a lot of like hinted, stuff that was always kind of over my head at the time, but it's definitely more fun now to look back on.
Well, the very nature of them is one big adult joke.
Yes.
Because they're like college age. They look like they're high. They get scared in a haunted house. Like, what are they doing in the haunted house? Like, these kids are stoners.
I mean, like, the whole premise of the show is absurd when you think about it. Like, a bunch of kids going around and solving mysteries that apparently, like, people just regularly dress up as monsters to achieve some absurd, like, villainous scheme. Like, it's an idiotic premise that, like, today, if you were to pitch that, people would be like, are you high? Like, no one would want to see that. But for whatever reason, it worked at the time and, like, has endured.
It absolutely has endured, and it's so universal. Kids still watch it. It's still popular amongst kids. When they say Scooby-Doo, I was like, I used to watch that when I was a kid. If I talk to like much older kids, they would be like, no, I watched that when I was a kid. How could you watch it? It's just has stuck around. I
don't think that there's very many people, even like young kids, that don't know who Scooby-Doo is. Like, if you show them a picture of Scooby-Doo, they're gonna know, regardless of like when they watched the show. Like, there's been a lot of reboots and like attempts to like bring the show back that haven't been that great. Like, the show from the 70s still to me is the best.
I agree with you. The 70s is the best, but I do think some of the modern ones, I don't mind them that much. They're not like, in the world of reboots, I'll take a Scooby-Doo reboot over like any of the shit that they've been doing. Yeah,
I mean, they tried to keep it at least similar to what it was,
Right, because they mess up G.I. Joe, they mess up Transformers, they mess up everything from our childhood. But Scooby-Doo, they kind of get right. I remember in my 20s, I used to watch some version. I can't keep track of the reboots because they do it so often. But there was one where they even had Shaggy going out with Velma.
Yeah.
They were like going on dates and stuff.
Yeah, like they definitely added some modern twists, throughout the time to like the formula, but like the core formula was still the same. There was a goofy monster. There was like the same dynamics. Shaggy's always been a stoner. Scooby-Doo exists in the world, which is always kind of a plus. I don't know where he is in Velma, but he's not there.
Here's one that's really great in the modern age, and once again, I don't know which series this is, but there's an episode where they go to Area 51. And they all split up, and Shaggy and Scooby. Do you know this one I'm talking about? Because this is an old school one. This is like a more modern one.
Yeah.
And Shaggy meets the most perfect girl. She's like a hippie girl, and then Scooby sees her dog, and her dog is beautiful, and they hang out with them the entire time.
Yeah.
And at the end of the episodes, it's like implied that they were aliens, and they weren't really into them.
So that's. Some of the newer ones, like they actually introduced like true supernatural things, which was a little bit, I had mixed feelings about it because to me it kind of not ruined the formula, but it was like it strayed a little bit too far from like the core of the show, which I kind of preferred. I'm a little bit of a purist, but I appreciated it. Like, it was still fun.
I think it's a really good idea to occasionally make it an actual supernatural thing. So like they're like expecting to rip off the mask, and then they're like, oh, wait a minute, this is actually a werewolf.
Yeah, because I mean, I guess over time, like the weird thing about Scooby-Doo, if you really think about it, then there's hundreds of episodes, and every single time they go into these situations, they're still like, is it a real werewolf? Is it a real ghost? After hundreds of mysteries that they've solved. So it's like they're either really, really stupid, or like they're just that like cowardly that they would actually still think that these things are like real people.
I mean, are you a true crime, a true detective fan? That series on HBO?
A little bit. I haven't really, gone too deep into it, but I do enjoy those kinds of stories, like, in general.
Yeah,
those kinds of shows.
There's gritty detectives, and in season 3, there's one where they're going on something, and people think the kids are abducted. The missing kids are abducted by some sort of boogeyman, and then one of the guys is like, "You think it's possible?" And he's like, "Yeah, maybe." He's like, "Why?" And he's like, "Me and you together have solved 200 murders, and it's never been a boogeyman.
Right.
So why would it be a boogeyman now, right? Like, it's logic, and you'd think that same logic would apply to these kids."
But I mean, yeah, I guess then you wouldn't have a kid show with a awesome laugh track. And that's one of the things that I don't think gets enough credit, honestly, from the original show, is like they treated it like a sitcom, and the laugh track, which is absurd now to think about, but made like the whole thing just feel kind of like more silly. Like if you take the laugh track out of the like 70s show like episodes, it's really lame. There's actually YouTube videos of this, and it feels really weird.
Oh no, I can only imagine. Checking with chat, Matt says I haven't watched Velma. Rogue Radio says, "Oh God, Scooby-Doo was a mood." Yes, it was. Matt says I have no interest in watching the show. That apparently means I'm a bigot. Yeah, so there's a lot of that going on right now, right?
Yeah, the funny thing about Velma is everybody hates it on like every end of the political spectrum. Like, if there's one thing that's if there's one thing that's unifying about the show, it's like hatred from everybody. Which, in a way, like maybe Velma is what the world needs right now because it will bring us all together with something that we can all verifiably hate.
Like Trump and Biden will look at each other and be like, they'll both be like, I hate that show. Like, me too. And
exactly. Like they can hug and hold hands and watch Velma and have a mutual hatred of this thing that is objectively one of the worst shows probably in the last 10 years. Right. Easily in the last 10 years.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, Connor says my favorite was Mystery Incorporated series. I think that's the one I was referring to.
I think that's a later, like not like a full reboot, but it was a later one. And they've made a lot of one-off movies, kind of the same way that they've done like with like the Warner Brothers, animated DC characters. There's a number of like hour and 15-minute movies that they've made with Scooby-Doo as well. Right. And there's
Matt says Scooby-Doo is the shiz. Yes, he is.
Absolutely.
Matt says, well, do you think the Scooby-Doo 2020 was a direction to go? I'm not sure. Like I said, I don't know that enough. Like I don't watch it on the regs that I could differentiate each various series. But yeah, so I wouldn't know what 2020 is as opposed to Mystery Incorporated or Scooby-Doo Where Are You or whatever the different names for them are.
I can tell a little bit by like the art style more than anything because the art has changed over time. But the more recent stuff, I have no idea. I mean, Scooby-Doo has a pretty it's pretty close to my heart for a couple of reasons. One, because obviously I grew up with it. But two, because one of my earliest dreams that I ever had was a dream where I was Scooby-Doo.
You mean in life total? Like in your
like in real life,
like
when I was asleep, I had this dream, this very vivid dream where I was Scooby-Doo and I was making love to Shaggy. And it was like the most vivid dream that I have ever had. And like I woke up and I was like, holy crap, like that was a weird dream.
Well, so like if I may ask, how old were you?
Probably like 12 or 13, maybe. I mean, I don't really remember exactly. It may have been younger.
You didn't have vivid dreams before then?
I mean, I did, but like that's one of the ones that I can really remember.
I was making love to all sorts of cartoons at all ages, man.
Yeah, like most of my dreams now are very oddly vivid. Like I remember lots of my dreams. I usually dream 2 or 3 times a night actually, and like I wake up like at 4 o'clock and I'm like, I'm glad that was a dream. Otherwise I'd be really concerned about, myself.
Your mentality.
Yeah.
Welcome in SMH, Princess Bex, and Raw Soul. Welcome in, and Gray Winthrop. If I missed any of you, many apologies. I can't get everyone in the chat, but thank you so much for stopping in. Matt says, I knew this was going to be bad. It's Mindy Kaling. She's a terrible writer. So yes. I don't know. I know that. All I knew is that the Mindy Project, is that what it was called? The Mindy Project?
Yep.
Was not for me. Like I tried watching and I just kind of wrote it off as like a woman show. No offense to women. But it just kind of seemed like, it was about dating and being a young woman and it's just something I couldn't really relate to. Right.
Well, she has that other show now on HBO that's like the sex lives of college girls.
And so
what
I've seen of that, I see the appeal of it. Like there is like humor in there.
I haven't watched it. I almost watched a little bit of it just for reference for tonight. But honestly, I was like, I don't care about the sex lives of college girls. And I especially don't care about Mindy Kaling's opinion about what that should look like. And I was like, which is what I figured it was going to be.
Not a show for me per se, but from the little I've seen of it, like somebody had it on and I was like, okay, this is funny. I think, the girl was in some sort of weird predicament. I think like she was trying to get into a club and she thought everyone was like, you got to be nice to the guys who run the club. And so she ends up blowing all the guys to try to get into that. That's the joke. Wow. And she goes back to her friends and she's like, I gave them all head. And they're like, you slut. And they slut shame her. And she's like, but you told me to do that. It was actually pretty funny. But once again, it seems like Mindy Kaling has one trick, and that is being hypersexual or hyper gross.
Yes, and I mean, I think it's pretty clear from like Velma. Like, should we like just set the premise of like what the show is real quick? Because
yes,
I mean,
let's actually just get down into what, because we were talking about the old school Scooby-Doo. Now let's get into Velma and what this whole thing is. Would you like to describe it for them?
Sure. So like at a high level, Velma is the origin story of like the gang, the mystery solving gang. It's supposed to be, but it's told through Velma's eyes, and it's like a more modern take. So you have like Velma who's going through this mystery, and unlike the original show where like every episode is like a different mystery, there's kind of like one mystery in the background that she's trying to solve probably throughout the entire season.
I gotta tell you, like. I really don't appreciate that.
No.
I really was hoping that they would find that murderer by the end of the first one, and it just keeps going. And I'm like, I don't want to watch one. I don't want. Here's what it is. I understand why cop shows sometimes do it. I don't want to watch cartoon characters unravel a mystery for 13 episodes. Especially
one that's as lighthearted and like goofy as this. Like, there's nothing that would about the characters themselves that make you want to stick with them for that long.
Well, this one, it would seem that they went out of their way. Like people accuse it of this, but not this, but a lot of things. Of creators nowadays are not really creators. They're people who hate the originals, and then they're given the job to write them. And it seems like Mindy Kaling did everything in her power to ruin every concept of Scooby-Doo, including getting rid of Scooby-Doo. There's no Scooby-Doo character.
Right. There's no dog at all.
There's no dog. There's no mysteries being wrapped up. So far, there's no one dressed up like a supernatural entity.
No. There's nothing.
And I'm
like there's nothing that even resembles the original show beyond just using the names. And so it feels really cheap. Like they knew that if they didn't attach something that people would recognize, no one would watch the show. And so instead, they just took the skins of an old show that people love to try to pull in an audience, and then reskinned this like horrific monster of a show to try to make that appeal. And so like they're basically like cherry picking people's nostalgic emotion in a hope that people will watch it.
But here's what I'm saying: they're for. It's just weird because they're choosing all the wrong choices.
Right. Yes.
It's like Transformers. Let's say they were going to reboot Transformers, and some executive walks in the writer's room and he's like, "Does this show have to be about robots?"
Right.
Maybe there's too many cars in this show.
Right.
Can we get rid of the cars? And like that would be the thing that is the nostalgia. And without it,
exactly.
You're like, what?
Yeah. Like, so all the things that people loved about the original, they took out of the show and left with these like stereotypical characters that you just hate. And not just hate because they don't represent the original, but you hate them because they're just terrible people, like across the board. Like Velma is the worst human being in the entire show by far.
The dark edginess. This is super edge. This is edgelord beyond.
See, I don't. Yeah, so it's trying to be edgy, but I would say that it fails in every capacity of being edgy. I think it's actually an extremely cowardly show. And here's why. So I'll give you an example. So the very first episode, the first scene of the whole actual show, like after the credits, is that shower scene. Right. So there's this scene when it's in a girls' locker room and there's like 4 naked girls showering, and they're talking about how like all the time on like new pilot shows, like they show gratuitous nudity, right? Like, and they're talking about it like as it's happening, like, oh, like no one's done that before. And it's so poorly done. Yeah, it's so stupid. But the thing about it is, like, cartoons have been showing naked characters since the 80s. So like they're not doing anything edgy. I mean, I've seen more butts on The Simpsons. I've seen more butts on, SpongeBob, everything. And then the show is so cowardly that it's not even like willing to actually go very far with that nudity. All it does is show a bunch of like butts.
And steam, steam is over the tits.
Right. So to talk about gratuitous nudity and then to show like a few quick like glimpses of like a butt isn't really that edgy or daring. They basically just, like it's cowardly.
I would say that the acts of like true cowardice, I'd say this. I see what you're talking about. Is that literally the first joke made in it is she's getting changed in the locker room, Daphne, and she looks down. It's supposed to signify that it's gross. and that cockroach comes out, and then another cockroach comes, and they start banging.
Yeah, like
and
why?
I'm like, why are you showing? Like, what is this?
It doesn't make any sense. But like, I mean, in addition to that whole thing that's being weird, it's so cringy because it's a high school locker room. These are like 15-year-old girls. 16-year-old girls that they're showing naked in a locker room. It's like that scene from Porky's, but like younger. It's so creepy. I was like, I'm uncomfortable that you would think that this is okay that anyone would want to see this, and then to be talking about it like gratuitously is just weird.
Right.
It was so uncomfortable.
To answer Ken's question that I've had up for quite some time, sorry about that, Ken. Ken says, when are we going to talk about The Last of Us? So I haven't finished watching the first episode. I'm halfway through it. Oh, it's
so good.
And so I'm going to be finished watching it. We're going to talk about it a little tonight later on in Fanboy Modeling School. That's right, I'm going on again. I'm going to stream again tonight. But in general, I think I'm going to review it. I'm going to review each episode on my channel. I'm going to do rundowns of it after every week of it, as a show. So you can always watch those. Gray says Mindy Kaling wrote for The Office, and that was great, of course. But the Mindy Project, not my style. Sheesh. Yeah, the Mindy Kaling show sucked. So did the late night movie. She's the worst, and no one wants to watch a show about college whores. Says Matt. We need the origin story from Scooby's point of view. If they had Scooby in it, it's just show it all funny. So to answer your question, Matt, I know you guys asked this question a long time ago. It's really not funny, and so few jokes ever land. Right.
The problem with the show in terms of the writing, there's two things to me. It feels like the script in general is like someone went to Mindy Kaling's Twitter, took all of her like random like progressive points, and then tried to like shoehorn them into a script. Like a lot of the jokes and things don't really have a purpose, and they're not particularly like meta. They're just like bluntly stated. And so like what should be the like, oh, I get it, the joke means blah blah blah, instead of having a joke that sets up the blah blah blah, they just tell you the blah blah blah. So they're like, white guys are bad. That's like supposed to be the joke. As opposed to like showing something of a white guy doing something stupid that hints at like something societal. They just say like white people are bad, and you're like, what?
So literally the punchline to countless jokes between the two episodes is, well, of course he is. He's a white dude.
Yeah.
Of course he is a little dick. He's a white dude. Of course he murdered her. He's a white dude. Of course he didn't ever learn to work. He's a white dude. And I'm like, what is? It's not even funny. Even if there were funny jokes about white dudes, I'd take it.
Yeah. Well, and it's weird because like the show is trying to be, I would argue generally has like a much more like progressive viewpoint, which is like totally fine, but it relies on like stereotypes the entire way through to like push those points. So I think like the second episode is a really great example where the whole point of the episode is like, Velma trying to understand that she's a little judgy, potentially. And so like she looks at Freddie and says like he's a murderer because he's a rich white guy. But then the reason why he's not the murderer is because he's a rich white guy. Like he can't do anything for himself. And so like it doesn't make any sense. I'm like,
so while she's apologizing for ill behavior, she's insulting again.
Right. And the show uses the characters like in very stereotypical ways. So the judginess isn't just Velma's character, Girl Lineage to Grow. Like everybody falls into a stereotype. Like everybody is literally a stereotype. And so they don't have any character of their own.
Right.
Like, at all.
I mean, definitely. These characters definitely are one-dimensional.
Oh,
they're one-dimensional as freaking hell. It's kind of crazy. Here's what I'm saying. I would actually say that the one-off adventures of old school Scooby-Doo, the characters were more well-rounded.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Than whatever's going on here.
Yeah. I mean, Velma's character is basically just a shoe-in for Mindy Kaling. It's Mindy Kaling, exactly. Like the way that she talks, everything. And like even the voice acting is just poorly done. Like the timing is weird. It's, I mean, it's worth watching just at least once. Like if you haven't watched an episode, you need to watch it because there's no way to describe how cringy It really is. Like,
it is, and I will say it is the first time. I think we were talking about this before the stream. It is the first time that I've truly had a hard time finishing something.
Yeah.
Like really, not just kind of bored. Sometimes you look at your phone. I actually actively was like, I can't wait to turn this off.
Right. Exactly. And it wasn't even it's not even a situation of like, it's so bad, it's good. Like, M. Night Shyamalan movies are above and beyond the worst thing that have ever graced this earth. But there are moments where like I can laugh through them because they're so bad. Like The Happening is to me like one big joke, and the joke is that he thinks it's and he thinks it's like a serious movie. Like Shyamalan thinks it's like a dark, which is what makes it so funny. Like this show wasn't like that. I never found myself thinking like, wow, this is so bad, it's good. I mean,
I absolutely agree. Although I would also say that is a good bringing up that movie is pretty interesting because The Happening is also a hard movie to get through.
It is a hard movie to get through.
Yeah, it's
definitely not a movie.
A lot of Shyamalan movies, like I wouldn't even say are that hard to get through. I just think they're dumb.
Yes,
which is but like Happening was like, can I please turn this off? Like,
when they start outrunning the wind or running away from the wind, I think I wanted to break my television. One thing I don't understand about the show, like the Velma show, I understand, changing up some of the characters, that's fine. But why is Shaggy not even Shaggy? He's Norville. They changed, like, not just his race, but his name and his character entirely. And I don't understand why.
Definitely. Well, he is Norville. Shaggy's real name is Norville, but like, that was a running joke. Not even a running joke. It's like a joke in like one episode back in the day or something.
Okay. But I mean, like, nobody knows that.
Yeah, nobody knows that. But the entire Norville / Shaggy character is just not Shaggy in any way.
No. He's like
even
more
the jokes he makes, it's like they're not writing for him. It's almost like the actor got to write himself, and he's like, I'm just gonna be myself. Why do I need to be Shaggy?
Yeah, I don't understand like his whole point. Like, he doesn't seem to even like have a reason to be in the show other than like to swoon over this Velma that everybody hates.
Which also is contradictory to the main plot line, because supposedly she's so hateable. Why would anyone be obsessed with her?
Well, like, so this is like a great example of like why I'm confused about like who the show is even for. So there's that moment in the first episode where Norville's like pouring his heart out to Velma, like about how he cares about her, his feelings, and she just laughs at him. Like, she laughs at him, like completely rejects him. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, here's a dude that's like connected to his feelings, who's putting it out there, who's being like the vulnerable beta male that everybody thinks, men should be nowadays. And they just completely crap all over him for doing that and for being that way.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what? Like,
and so the beta males who are watching can't even appreciate it.
And then you have Freddie, who's like the opposite, and they're crapping all over him. So I'm like, what are you? Who should we be like advocating for in this show? Like, what kind of a person? Because you seem to hate everybody and have a problem with everybody.
Right.
Like, I just don't get
it. It is truly bizarre. AJ says no Scooby-Doo. No, Scooby-Doo is like taking away. No Scooby-Doo is like taking away the Big Mac from the McDonald's menu.
Yeah, it would be like having a Ronald McDonald's commercial with like the Hamburglar and Gremlin, and not having like Ronald McDonald there.
Right.
And just like having that be, and like not even explaining like why he's gone.
Yo, Matt says there is a dog. Her name is Mindy Kaling. Woof, woof, woof. Princess Beck says the racial diversity was interesting. I'm assuming Velma is Indian because Mindy is of Indian descent. Not gonna lie, it threw me off a little bit. They
don't really ever get into like what her race is.
Right.
Like, they just kind of like they hint at the fact that like, oh, people think I'm Mexican, or that Freddie thinks she's Mexican. So like, we know that she's not Mexican, but like her dad looks kind of Mexican in the show, but he doesn't act or seem Mexican.
Yeah, I mean,
they just made her like an androgynous. Yeah, they made her like an androgynous minority.
So I think I think it's obvious that she's Velma is herself. Insert is as in Velma is herself. And all the actors are playing themselves basically in this situation.
Yes.
It's so funny. In the main trailer, people's original complaint was all about the racial stuff.
Right.
Which I didn't love that either. However, now that you see it, the thing that I'm concerned about is it's not interesting. It has all the wrong choices. It butchers the original. It's not funny. It's mean-spirited.
It's extremely mean-spirited.
Yeah, extremely mean. Like Mindy Kaling, like somebody hurt her, poor girl.
Yeah.
And this is her therapy, or revenge therapy.
Yeah.
Just shitting on people left and right. And it's not fun. Like, here's what I'm saying. If you watch Rick and Morty, Rick is the biggest bully in the universe. You can still kind of connect with him, and he's still funny about it.
Yeah. Well, so Rick and Morty, like the reason why that show works is because you have Morty, who's like the moral heart in a way of the show. And so like you have their back and forth, but there's also moments where you see Rick's pain, and like you see that like there's like these very deep moments that you're like, holy crap. There's none of that in the show. There's nothing that shows that like Velma has any level of depth or care. And the fact that they did all the racial swapping, like fine, but then they crap on everybody for being that race. Like that's the thing that's so weird. Like all the white people just get crapped on. So they like use the race swapping, and then they like make them stereotypes. And so all it does is like shine a big light on stereotypes. It doesn't like do anything to like subvert expectations. It's so weird.
Yeah, no, it is totally bizarre. And they had 2 episodes. Like sometimes like people will be like, the first episode is a bad representation, and I know pilots tend to not be great, but we had two examples. Or they had 2 chances to get it right, and they didn't get it right in either one.
No, the second episode is almost worse, I think, than the first one.
It gets
the whole drug thing is just weird. The only thing I could appreciate in the whole show was that like the names of the drugs are like Zoinks and Jinkies, like kind of a nod to like some of the.
There's a mystery. One of them is Mystery Machine.
Yeah, like Mystery Machine, which I could appreciate. That was probably the only thing that I was like, oh, like I get the nod.
You know, it's funny. I remember when watching it, there was one joke that I liked, but I can't remember what it was. But it ended up being the only joke I liked the entire thing.
I can't remember anything. Like, there's so much that's so bad that it's just like, and every single line is like an attempt at like a political one-liner. Like they don't even space them out, and so it's just like bad joke after bad joke after bad joke, and you're like, why?
And so, you know about why the left is really angry with the show? In general, the show just has poor taste, bad taste across the board. But she made the Me Too joke. Yeah. That apparently pissed off a lot of people.
About the comedians, like not spewing truth anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
The animation, I think, is pretty bad. Like, it's not terrible.
I've definitely seen worse in this day and age.
But it's just basic, Yeah. It's nothing that's like particularly exciting.
Ken says the worst thing about The Happening was imagining Mark Wahlberg as a science teacher.
Yeah. The behind the scenes like commentary of that movie is so funny, because there's a lot of times where like you see Mark Wahlberg being like, so why would my character do this? Like, why wouldn't he just do this? And like M. Night Shyamalan like can't give a really reasonable explanation like why his story doesn't make any sense, and like so he just kind of like laughs it off and rambles, and like you can see Mark Wahlberg's pain of like, I have to do this. It's so funny. And like the best part of it is like Shyamalan doesn't realize how bad it is. Like he sees that moment and like chose to put that on the DVD because he thought it was like good, and I'm like, you realize you're just making more of an idiot of yourself,
right? Shyamalan's very unself-aware, definitely, as a creator. But on the Velma tip, here on Rogue Planet, we like to analyze and theory craft and all these things. And are you ready to hear one of the craziest theories out on the internet right now? So somebody has leaked that our man Shaggy is going to be having a romantic interest, a black girl who's a food critic. And they've shown scenes of them in the future together being happy, and they're inseparable. And her name is supposedly Scooby with an I. That the show has literally species bent and gender bent a dog.
I absolutely hope that this is true. Woman. Like, I hope this is true, just because I want to see like the fury that this will create. Like,
I would love to watch Mindy Kaling never work again if this actually happens.
Yes.
You realize she will never work again if she's actually doing this.
Could you imagine taking a dog and turning them into a black person? Like the outrage that the left is going to have if you do that.
Yeah.
Like, I really hope that they are that stupid, that they're that like self-unaware.
Okay, so actually, I'd like to address your counter lie, Greg, because you don't know what you're talking about. So somebody pointed out that they're like, no, there's a black girl who plays part of their friends, and her name is Gigi. Gigi, people have held up the pictures next to each other. They're not the same black girl. So one is a popular black girl who's in the It crowd. She's already been seen on camera. The girl with the braided hair who's going to go out with Shaggy is a different black character. So that is not Gigi. That has been debunked.
They've apparently already greenlit season 2 of this monstrosity.
That's the rumor. I'm wondering if this is true or what. Here's what I'm saying. A lot of times, this happens with movies too. To try to hype up a product when it's out in theaters or right then, they just go, "We've just fast tracked the sequel."
Right.
To try to get people like, well, now I better jump on this bandwagon while it's happening.
Well, and like what I'll be curious about, because like I don't know if you are aware, but this movie or the show has already like broken the record of Dragon Ball, the movie, of being the lowest rated thing on Rotten Tomatoes. It has the lowest.
Dragon Ball was like 0 point something.
So this show now has the lowest rating on RottenTomatoes.com. It has beaten that record. So it is the lowest rated thing ever. And just to explain, guys, we are not talking about the anime. We're talking about the American live action Dragon Ball, where they turned all the Asian characters and alien characters into white high school kids. Which it really was deserving of the lowest rating. It was one of the dumbest movies I have ever seen. But I'm worried that this is going to be a situation where like it's so bad that everyone's like, I have to watch this, and like they get hooked on it in the same way that people way back in the day got hooked on Howard Stern. Like Howard Stern's ratings were so high because so many people hated his show and hated him that they would listen, like so that they would be outraged. And I wouldn't be surprised if something similar happens here. Where like,
if I can't get your attention a positive way, then I'll get it a negative way.
Right. And so like I could totally see it, technically on the books being popular because so many people are watching it. Like I got to see how crappy this is.
Right. Matt says this entire conversation is rooted in misogyny. You're just mad because Mindy Kaling, Velma, is a strong person of color like AOC who fights for critical race theories. You racists.
Well, the irony of that, or not the irony, but it's funny because like Mindy Kaling said that, she sees Velma as like a strong, like gay role model. And like all she does the entire 2 episodes is complain about everybody else. Like she complains about Daphne being attractive and popular, but like Daphne never really does anything like mean. She just happens to be attractive and popular. Right.
Like, and the
like
show,
that's the thing.
The show comes from a point of view that Daphne and Fred, because they're popular and good looking, they therefore are evil and should be punished for that.
And they don't particularly do anything for really that evil, like towards other people. I mean, Daphne does sell drugs, which, in the second episode, she starts for whatever weird reason. But what's so odd about that is like you're supposed to kind of hate Daphne a little bit for like dealing drugs, but Velma is also like going into people's houses looking for things to steal, to sell for $500. So like she's just as horrible. I'm like, what? Right, she's a scumbag.
So with Matt's comment, I want to bring something up that's just about the culture of reviewing things and all these things. You ever notice that nowadays it's automatic defense comes up from anyone who's critical of you, and they say, if you don't like this, you must be a misogynist. If you don't like this, you must be a racist. Or the third one they go to is, all those people who are giving me downvotes are bots.
Yep.
People will quickly say everything's a bot. They're like, all those people who voted for Trump, they're Russian hackers. They're bots. All those people on Twitter who say whatever are bots. There can't be this many bots in the world. Right. So for starters, anyone who goes on the bot thing, I immediately zone you out. This must be a moron, right? But why is it? And I know Matt's joking with us. Matt doesn't believe that shit. But it is funny that people do say that. That the idea is that I'm not allowed to criticize Velma because I'm not Indian, and I must hate women or I must hate Indians.
Well, I mean, there have been shows like movies that before they even came out, people were like, if you don't go see this movie, like, you're hateful. It's like before things have even come out in the theaters, like they preemptively like start arming themselves because, you know, either they know the movie's not going to be good or because they just feel like this is a safe thing they can do. But that's why I love Velma, because everybody hates it. So like it's going to be really hard to use that as like an excuse when literally everybody across the board is like, this is a terrible show.
Well, I hope executives don't fall for it. I hope that like when they have a meeting with David Zaslav about the future of season 2, that they're like, he'll be like, why do you have only 6% on Rotten Tomatoes? And it's like, oh, those are misogynists. Right. Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah. 94% of people are hateful.
Grey Window says everybody should go watch the Venture Brothers season 2 episode 11 with an actual funny adult spoof on Scooby-Doo. I know what she's talking about. It's very funny.
I mean, Johnny Bravo did the best job of spoofing Scooby-Doo back in the day. I don't know if you remember that cartoon, but like there's an episode where Johnny Bravo meets Scooby-Doo and they solve a mystery, and the whole thing's a parody. But it's brilliant. So like there's you know how like in the original show, like they always kind of divide up into teams and they go off. Well, like as they're dividing up the teams, Daphne's like, I'll go with Shaggy to do this, and then Fred's like gets mad and like kind of nudges her and like points like at a closet. Like so like they it's so great. Like they do a whole bunch of like little things, you know, where like they divide.
Johnny Bravo style. I gotta see that. I really gotta check that.
I mean, what Mindy Kaling is trying to do with the show was already done with Daria back, you know, in the 90s. Like you have like the edgy, moody teen that's basically observing her high school world and complaining about it. But Daria does it so much better.
Yeah, Daria is such a good. Daria is the best, like, grumpy hater protagonist ever.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's really frustrating just in general about the show is like there are so many ways to have done the things better than what they're doing. And what's sad about it is like, so Glenn Howerton, I didn't even realize this until earlier today, is voicing Freddy, you know, he's in on So Is Sunny in Philadelphia. And like, you know, the humor that they've done like on these same topics is so much more clever than, you know, the way that they're treating some of these like racial things. You know, like, I mean, I think like the best example that I can think of is the cannibal episode when Charlie and Dee think that they become cannibals. And so like they go to try to like eat a human. They go to a morgue to try to eat a human to like once and for all figure out if they're cannibals. And there's a white guy and a black guy and they're both dead. And Charlie looks at them and he's like, would it be racist if we don't, you know, eat the black guy? And then they're like, well, now it'll be racist. And so now they're like feeling guilty about wanting to eat the white guy versus the black guy. And like, they're trying to reconcile like that thing, which is so much funnier than any kind of situation that they put into the show, because it points to the same kinds of mentalities that like people are dealing with now about like, you know, how to interpret their thoughts and feelings. But like this show just is like, you know, white people are bad basically, or you know, it doesn't do any of that.
Bad. Having money is bad. This show really hates people with money.
Yeah, it doesn't create like a situation and like let the situation just show the point. Instead, like it just tells every single point that it's trying to make.
Oh, also, you know like, what it does? You know what else it does? This is a serious pet peeve of me. And this is the writer in me. You know, just the writer. I got to tell you guys, having a narrative in a film is the weakest, cheapest thing you can do, unless the person giving the narration is able to paint a picture which is not evident of what's on the picture, what's happening. So instead of just saying we went outside and had some drinks, and then it's showing you have drinks, it's a pointless endeavor. They have to say something clever about the moment that you're not picking up, and
like how they're feeling about that moment.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
Yes. Yeah, it makes no sense. It's pointless. The inflections, like even in Mindy Kaling's voice, are just bad. Like she's not good at being excited versus being upset versus being snarky. Like it all sounds kind of the same. Like it really sounds like an amateur voice actor like doing a part, at least on her end. I mean, it's really, really bad.
Yeah, oh man, Matt says Daphne is a pretty girl. See, they're touching on pretty girl privilege. It's very progressive. Welcome in Shaolin Iceboxer. Welcome, much love from the crowd out here. We are talking Velma tonight, and the monstrosity of a show that is. I mean, not many people have HBO Max, so I assume it really can't have that high ratings, right? It doesn't have high ratings.
No, I mean it's getting destroyed. Like I went on Mindy Kaling's Twitter. Like, so here's how pissed off I was. Like I got so I'm still pissed. Like the more I'm doing my best to like stay calm, you know, and be articulate. But I hate Twitter. Like I don't use Twitter, and I was so mad that I actually went on like an old Twitter handle that I haven't used in years and started like just yelling at Mindy Kaling like over and over about how bad her show was. And reading,
you actually sent her tweets?
I actually sent her tweets, and I was reading all the tweets, and it's just a barrage of like, how could you put this out there? How could you put your name on this? Like, there are a lot of comments of people who were like, "Thank you so much for putting this show out. My husband has been in a coma for 10 years, and he finally got up to turn off your show." Like those kinds of comments, which I was like, yeah, you know.
That is so impressive. I absolutely love that.
Yeah. So
you know, I try my best not to be like that on Twitter, not to lose my mind. I did it the other day, unfortunately, to limited run games. I don't know if you heard, but they're the people who fired somebody for having for following conservatives on Twitter.
Oh no, I did not hear about this at all.
Yeah, this girl was fired. Basically, here's what it is. A trans person publicly outed them, and they said, limited run games. You claim to be an ally of my people, but this person who works for you follows Gina Carano and J.K. Rowling and all these people. And then they were like, okay, we fixed it. We let it. And they're like, wow. We believe in everyone has the right to have their own opinion, but we're also a company that believes in like being open-minded and diverse or whatever, some whatever. And I was so enraged when I heard that story. It like set me off that I immediately just started tweeting horrible things at them. And I thought I was going to get blowback. Harsh. I thought I was going to get blocked, and I didn't. They actually, the company has like made it where no one can tweet at them now. They've like limited, no one can respond to their tweets and stuff.
Well, I mean, it's sad because like, I mean, Gina Carano's, I mean, she's a conservative person, but it's not like she's a loud political voice. She just happens to be, I mean, like she occasionally puts things up there, which, you know, she got in a lot of hot water, but that was largely because of Disney. Like it blew up, but it's not like she's like a heavy-handed person.
Okay,
so like following somebody, like, you know.
In terms, she's not, and it's true. She may have made like a dumb tweet, you know, about the Holocaust or whatever, or comparing how conservatives are treated now to she was in the Holocaust. I think that's an extreme, idiotic tweet.
Absolutely,
Did you get fired over that? That's ridiculous. We're a little off topic, but I'm fine with getting into this. But like, the thing is there are certain movements out there that you can't. If there's a whiff that you're not all 1,000% on board, they will do their best to destroy everything about you. J.K. Rowling is an example.
Yes.
So like, and so with Gina Carano, it's not. Here's what it is: Gina Carano's sin was making fun of the pronouns.
Right.
Ultimately, and therefore they now label her as the devil, and she must be destroyed on every level. And anyone who has any connection to her must be a hater. Right. I saw something about J.K. Rowling. Someone tweeted the most ridiculous thing in the world. They said, I understand you love Harry Potter, but trans rights are human rights. I can't believe you choose a video game over the rights of other human beings. And I'm like, no matter what J.K. Rowling's opinion is, supporting her video game has nothing to do with human rights.
Right. It's so
Even
absurd.
If she hated them beyond belief and wanted them exterminated or something, like some crazy idea like that, buying her video game could not further that cause. That's not her opinion in any way. But the people take it that seriously. They say this on the streets.
It's gotten a little absurd. I mean, I was just hoping that Mindy Kaling had like responded to the backlash. you know, like I wanted to see like if she had said anything, or like, you know, because I was expecting by this point there to be like a gazillion, like, you know, all the bigots are finally come out, kind of a tweet, and she hasn't, you know, something like that, and she hasn't said a word, which is
She's
probably
been patting herself on the back right now.
Right.
It's crazy.
It's
Because
so
here's what it
weird.
is. She said, this is the highest rating premiere for any animated original on HBO
Yeah,
Max.
I saw that.
HBO Max has almost no original shows, like
Right.
animated shows.
Yeah, it's like their only animated original show that I can think of. They don't call Daphne the White Devil, but they come about as close as you can without saying White Devil.
They definitely come very close to doing that. They might as well have done it. And I wouldn't put it past Mindy Kaling. I think the only reason she didn't say it is she didn't think of it.
Yeah.
But if it had come to mind, she would have wrote that in the script.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they do make fun of Fred for having a small ding dong multiple times, apparently.
They kept going on and on. They're almost obsessed with it. It was so bizarre.
Right. Well, the thing that's so weird about it is, like, early in the first season or the first episode, they kind of try to push a little bit of like body positivity with her. You know, like, so the whole show is kind of attacking people for the way they look, like for perpetuating, like, you know, your physical appearance being important. And then like the second episode, all they do the whole time is like make fun of Freddie for having like a small ding dong, and they're like, oh, it's a baby carrot. Like, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you hyping on this so much if you're pushing like body positive, like if that's like one of your things?
You can't. I guess the Seth Rogen defense.
Yeah, I mean,
Matt says limited run games can suck at dirty bunghole. Gina Carano is a queen, and J.K. Rowling is a queen. I agree with both those statements. So check this out, both for you, Logan, and everyone in the audience. I'm going to ask you a question. In terms of animated shows, have you guys ever heard or watched the show Close Enough?
I've heard of the show, but I have not seen it.
Or The Prince? Or 10-Year-Old Tom? Or Santa Inc.
No.
So Santa Inc. I've heard of. You know, I think that's Seth Rogen and who's that disgusting woman? Sarah Silverman.
Oh yeah.
Their thing. But those animated shows I just mentioned are the only other HBO animated originals. So Mindy Kaling is bragging that her show got better ratings than them.
Wow.
And these are shows almost no one has heard of.
Right. Yeah, that's not much of a bar, especially. I mean, Sarah Silverman's career, like, she destroyed her career years ago.
Why did she destroy her career? I remember she was at least on stuff I used to like.
So, I don't know if you remember the Sarah Silverman show, like way back in the day, was very, very like edgy and kind of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where she did a lot of things where, like, you know, she's Jewish.
Yeah, she does poo-poo jokes, toilet humor.
And like she did episodes where she like did a whole episode where she went in blackface and walked around like pretending to be black. But like her blackface was so bad, it was just like the front. And her friend who was black was pretending to be Jewish. So he had like big curls and like walked around with a giant nose. And so like the whole point of the episode. But like the whole point of the episode was like to kind of poke fun of like the absurdity of like that whole situation. And so a lot of her jokes were very racial and very like in that kind of realm. I mean, I can remember going to her comedy show and she said the best time to be pregnant is when you're a black teenager. Like that was one of her big jokes, you know? So the reason why her career kind of went down the hill is because when things started to get woke, she like went 180 and became like completely woke and started posting like tweets about like how terrible comedians were, when like she built her entire career on that edgy like
just saying
humor,
stuff that
like edgy racial humor, and like, you know, her show was very much that way. And so she kind of went downhill, I think, largely because of that. People were like, look, this is how you built your career. Don't get on a high horse now and pretend like, you know, these ideas that are coming out, like you're doing it just because you want to stay relevant and you don't want to sink because you're being a coward. Like she didn't stay true to her like her comedy, and now she's not funny because of that.
Right. When you like never bend the knee, never apologize, and never pull back on the throttle. Like in the
more
entertainment
or
world,
less,
do not pull back on the
Right.
throttle because people are criticizing you or something.
And
Ken
like
says the prince is hilarious.
it's funny that you mentioned that because that's the one joke that like Mindy Kaling, or one of the big jokes that Mindy Kaling on the left got criticized for by like progressives, was that she said like a comedian, you know, I speak unfiltered truth before Me Too, and people like got really angry about that. So like the one reference she made about comedians being like free to talk about, people were angry about,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and like Sarah Silverman fell to that.
There's a certain contingent of people in the world today who freedom of speech, or particularly freedom of comedy, drives them nuts.
Yes. Oh yeah.
It absolutely drives them nuts, and it's horrible. It's really sad. Matt is totally into Sarah Silverman, as is AJ. I don't remember her show. I think I've seen sketches from her show. I haven't seen the entire thing. But
It was years ago. I mean, her show is pretty old at this point, and I think it was only 2 seasons. I mean, and each season was only like 3 or 4 episodes. You know, it wasn't very long lived, but it was very ahead of its time in like terms of the edginess, which I think is probably why it didn't last, because it may have been a little bit too edgy for even Comedy Central at that time.
yeah, if there's gonna be a Comedy Central, people aren't allowed to make jokes. And you know what I actually find? I kind of noticed that whatever political party is in power, they become unfunny. So do you remember like the rise of the Daily Show and Comedy Central in general? When it was Comedy Central was always there, but Comedy Central was like a rinky-dink channel that played reruns of like comedies from the 70s or stand-up all the time. They'd have weekends of just stand-up, people you never heard of. And then all of a sudden it had this rise, and it was because of political humor.
Right.
And it was when Republicans were in power. We were going to Iraq. That was the rise of that whole thing. And Democrats were just suddenly being super funny. And they were like, we're funny, we're going to get you all. And now that the Dems are in power, they're not funny anymore. Their political people aren't funny. Daily Show's a joke. The people that have on the Daily Show is a joke. Their late night like comedians are all garbage.
People have gotten so defensive.
Couldn't tell a joke to save his life.
Oh, no. Stephen, I mean, Stephen Colbert has gone downhill for a long time. I feel like the last few years, but I mean, it really is. It's funny because like whatever side is in power doesn't seem to be able to take a joke. Like I can remember SNL did the best skits of George Bush, like with Will Ferrell. Like they were brilliant. When and like those skits pissed off a lot of people, like, you know, who were on like the more like on the right leaning side.
Oh yeah, because, they were like, you know, how dare you make fun of our president?
Right. Which is now how like, you know, Biden's getting made fun of in very much the same way, of like kind of being a dingus and like not knowing what he's doing.
Now I see it's the right side that's really funny. They're constantly making fun jokes, and they have a sense of humor, and the left has lost its sense of humor. Everything's so damn serious. You know what I'm saying? Like you talk about anything, you talk about Me Too or the environment or anything, starving children in another country, Ukraine, anything, it sets them off.
Well, you heard what USC is doing recently.
Oh, is this about the field? The list of words?
Yeah. So the USC is now calling their fields, like their practice fields for sports, practicums. Now there's, I guess, debate of whether or not they're actually going to do this, because the word field. Because the word field, using the word field is too racist, because it's too closely related to slavery, because slaves used to work in fields. So now they're pushing, like the field of social, I can't remember, the school of social something or other has a list of words that now they're no longer using in their curriculum, and field is one of them. They're calling like their sports fields practicums, because they're places where you practice. Right. It's like, yeah, like that level of absurdity. I mean, it's just, I don't understand it.
Reboot TV says, yeah, that was lame. Hold Up says Steve C is a cautionary tale of outstanding of outstanding. You're welcome. Yeah, no, I feel that.
Yep.
Stephen Colbert. But that's insane. For starters, why don't they use the word pitch like in Britain? But also, we shouldn't have to change our words. Fields existed not connected to slavery. It's just like I think it's San Diego, or is it San Francisco? Their police and fire units have gotten rid of the rank chief. There's no fire chiefs there's no chief of police because they're like, it has connotations with Native Americans. There are other types of chiefs than Indian chiefs.
Right. A chief is just like a leader. Yeah. That's so absurd. So something a little bit closer to probably you and I that happened in Charlottesville yesterday. So I don't know if you remember Meriwether Lewis School, the middle school, just voted to change the name to Ivy Middle School because the name Meriwether Lewis is too closely related to Jefferson, because I guess Meriwether Lewis and Jefferson were friends and Jefferson had slaves. Therefore, Meriwether Lewis is too closely related to slavery. And so now they are getting rid of that name.
Yeah,
so
that was why the Redskins, when they were talking about the options, when they're putting down the options, they were like, people are like, well, why don't you do this, the generals or the presidents? And people had the original idea was they're like, oh, you'll turn the profile of the Native American chief into a profile of George Washington, and they're like, oh, we can't, he owned slaves,
right?
And it's I'm like, we're at a point where we can't depict the first president of our country.
Or people who were just affiliated with people who had slaves.
Right. People who were
like,
friends,
if that's the case, like none of us should put our names on anything, because I'm pretty sure if you go back far enough, like everybody is affiliated with somebody who probably owned slaves at some point.
So like, Gray points out that the etymology of the word chief comes from chef, for the French word for boss. So
interesting. So it's the lousy French's fault.
It's a French word.
That makes me feel a little bit better, because like the less French stuff we have in this country, the better we are. Like I'm happy with that.
You and me and this whole French thing, man. We're gonna have it out.
Yeah.
Matt Cat says Stephen Colbert is such a weirdo. Did you see his Oprah interview? No, I didn't.
No.
His dad and brother are probably happy they died in a plane crash, so they didn't have to stand by him with that weird vaccine dance. What?
I will have to watch this, because I have not.
I'll have to see it to understand that joke, but that sounds like an intense joke.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. He says words have meaning and value, and people do value that, and it's worth nothing. Yes. It is crazy, the vandalization of the English language. I gotta say, this is one of the best victories that I've ever had. Do you know the YouTube martial arts? It's self-defense and martial arts, because he also teaches you about guns and shit. But Hard to Hurt.
I've seen bits and pieces of that.
Yo, so I had I invoked a conversation with this guy on Instagram.
Really?
Because in one of his videos, he said words are violence. He was talking about intimidate people, and he said words are violence. And I sent him an Instagram message, and I said, I saw in your new video, you said words are violence. And I said, words are not violence. Violence are violence. And I said, please don't participate in the vandalization of the English language. Words have meaning. The word has meanings. And violence has a meaning, and don't corrupt it. Right. And then we talked back, and we had an actual conversation about it.
That's impressive that he was like that you were able to kind of do that, because a lot of people would just be like, "Oh, you're bigoted."
He occasionally does. He occasionally does. I remember when I first found his channel, and I said what up. I sent him an Instagram thing, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, what's your deal?" And I was like, he thought Fat Mantis was a funny name. I feel so honored that he paid attention to me. And then I told him I did Kung Fu, and then he made a crack about me doing Kung Fu, because he hates traditional martial arts. So he made a joke about
There's an interesting like anti-traditional martial arts movement going on a little bit right now, like where like people are like, oh, it's not like real, it's not helpful, it's like that kind
culture.
Of thing.
It's it's gym bronies or whatever.
Yeah, it's all the like the MMA and like judo people that are like pissed off about like people doing martial arts.
It's like, here's what it is. It's like fitness. It's like dieting, or anything. What it is that all these people think that they've found the secret. That, like for instance, with dying people, like everyone your entire life has been lying. They don't know what fitness is, but my plan is the right plan.
Yeah.
And so like nowadays it's like intermittent fasting, but before that it was some other like Southeast diets. Before that it was keto. There's probably a million other ones. I have an aunt, and when I go to her summer house every summer, she's always talking about that diet she's gonna do. and she has the same conversation with me every summer. She's like, you know what I hear? Intermittent fasting things. Like 3 or 4 years ago earlier, it was keto was the thing.
Yeah. So I know somebody who did, keto, and recently, like their new trend, I think they got off of social media, is they have replaced sugar with butter. So like, yeah, it's the like, and I thought they were joking, but what they are doing is like, instead of putting sugar in their coffee, they'll replace it with butter because they're like, fat's better than sugar. And so anything that normally would like traditionally use honey or sugar or like in their food, like they're using butter and like they're loading up on butter instead. Which I mean, it hasn't seemed to help. He's been doing it for like 4 months, and I'm like, you look exactly the same. Not doing much for you. If butter was the secret to good health, America would be the thinnest, group on the planet, because we eat. There's plenty of people who eat plenty of butter.
But although I think they're probably getting that from French, because the French put so much cream and butter in their food.
Yes.
And for some reason they're rail thin. But that also has to do with portions. They have
they eat very
French
small
portion
portions.
is like nothing.
Right. It's so tiny. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a complete
He says that martial arts guy sounds like a douche. Hope he loses a foot. No, he's a good guy. He's very bent in his ways. I will say this, guys. Just to let you know, when we're talking about dieting, and it sounds like I'm talking fun or messing with people. The truth is that I think any one of these gimmicks can help you lose weight or whatever. But what it is they're always selling you fast or the best way to do it.
Right.
And the truth is, a reasonable diet and regular exercise is the surefire way that has humans throughout society, like throughout time and space, have lost weight.
Yep.
And everyone thinks that every couple of years, science has figured out a way around that. It hasn't. I promise you, it hasn't.
I mean, I was a strength and conditioning coach for years, and I guarantee you, like, all the gimmicks, anything that says like this is a surefire way to lose weight fast is, yes, you might lose weight fast because you're changing your body so rapidly that you're putting it into shock, but it doesn't last. Like, nothing drives me nuts more than like those YouTube and like social media like ads where like a dude's like pumping weight and he's like, some jack guy, he's like bench pressing while he's talking into the camera, and he's like, you should stop running if you want to look like me. He's like, follow my channel and I'll show you the real secret to look like this. And I'm like, dude, like, come on.
And they always say, it's a very common thing, is they say people have been doing it wrong all these years, but we figured it out. We know. And I'm like, just work out,
right, and
eat regularly. You don't have to eat out, like take out every night. Eat less sugar. Humans aren't supposed to have this much sugar. There's too much sugar in our foods. Cut out soda. These types of things will help you more than these gimmick diets.
Exactly.
Shaolin says they say that, but they are beginning to see more and more TMA techniques in MMA. You know what it is? Here's what it is. A technique is only as good as its user.
Right.
And if you don't have faith in your technique, you're not going to be able to pull it off. And there's all sorts of people who pull stuff out, pull stuff off. And people are like, how'd they do it? They must be magical. It's like, no, they've trained and they have faith in their technique.
I mean, we both know a mutual party that has been training for years in traditional martial arts. I mean, years, longer probably than technically I have. And there's not a soul on the planet that wouldn't throw him into the ground.
Right.
Right.
It's right. Like my deceased grandmother could take him out.
Right. Like, so
without
I think,
using necromantic powers.
Right. Part of that criticism, I think, that comes from like the judo crowd is, and it's somewhat legitimate, is there are a lot of kung fu schools that you stand and you punch and you stand and you kick, and like you don't actually ever practice application in any kind of situation. So yes, it's not going to really translate into a real world situation because you don't train for that. But you don't necessarily have to be a traditional martial artist. Like, there's different reasons for doing martial arts.
Oh, right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to quickly say a shout out to Sunny and to Elliot is awesome. Brick Gang in the house. Welcome. Thank you, guys. In regards to the butter diet, Gray Winthrop says Paula Deen would have been a supermodel. That was the case. Who needs keto and intermittent fasting? Velma and Mindy Kaling.
That's still another ironic thing about the Velma show is like there's so much like hate on skinny people, but like she just came out like after doing this like really intense like attempt to lose all of her weight. So like now she's like flouting the fact that she's like skinny and looks better. And then in the show she's making fun of the people that she has spent like years, like the last 2 years striving to be. It's very, very frustrating. Not to say that you shouldn't be healthy, but it's just ironic to me that she seems to hate on the thin crowd.
My beliefs is that I think that a lot of people who are supposedly Hollywood leftists, they don't believe half the things they claim they do. So if you look at Mindy Kaling's writing, remember she wrote The Office. Nowadays, The Office would be canceled.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
She believes racism is funny. She believes in body shaming. She believes skinny is superior to fat. She believes all this kind of stuff. She doesn't believe any of this stuff that she claims. She even is saying like, somebody's like, this show is for LGBT people. Mindy Kaling is not an LGBT person.
No.
And if she claims it, she's lying.
And it's really odd to say that because like in the show, like she seems to think that having just like a character like hinted at being a lesbian is enough to be like an LGBT show. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like in the course of like what's happening in the show, it just was like this thing that you threw in.
Yeah, they just threw in. They threw
like,
in
to be there.
Alert, they threw in like a lesbian kiss for like out of nowhere too. It was kind of out of nowhere.
And so like if that's what passes as like a show nowadays, like to be LGBTQ, all you have to do is have like a dude wink at another dude, and like the show is now like a gay show.
Right, but I notice a lot of creators are trying to say they're like, it's particularly women. Women can get away with it because people don't ask women. If you're a man, I think, and I'm just going to sound like a dick thing, I think they feel they have gaydar and they can spot if a man is gay or not. But it's much harder to know if a woman is. But I don't think it's appropriate to ask. So they're not going to ask Mindy Kaling if she's ever been with a woman. Yet she can claim that her work is LGBT.
Right. Yes, that's very true. Like why, according to like her beliefs, like why should she be allowed to even like make a show for a group that she's not part of?
Right. And so
like,
that's queer baiting.
That?
That's absolute queer baiting what she's doing because she's pretending that there's going to be a gay romance thing, and my feeling is that it's not going to go down that way.
And to do it so poorly, like I mean, like like what surprises me about. And like I'll kind of not to go back to the shower scene because that shower scene pissed me off, but like it pissed me off so much. But like if they were really trying to like make that into a joke, it would have been so much better if they had that shower be like a bunch of dudes and like they were talking about a show that they had just watched, about like the gratuitous nudity, and just showed like a bunch of dudes like butts or something. Like that would have been a funnier moment than like having them just have like a random conversation like in the meta kind of humor. Or do like what Game of Thrones does, like make fun of the fact that like so many Game of Thrones scenes will start on like 3 naked girls, and then like the camera like fades over to like 2 dudes sitting and talking about something that has nothing to do with the 3 naked girls. Yes. Making like they could have had like 3 naked dudes just standing there and like zoomed in and like just started another conversation, and like tried to play off on like things that have happened. Like there would have been so much more like.
On Game of Thrones, though,
funny.
you know that they created a phrase for it. Game of Thrones invented a technique. They didn't mean to make it, but writers have been like call it, and it's called the sex position. The sex position was created by Game of Thrones, where characters are banging or doing weird sex stuff, and then they happen to drop important information about the plot, like in the middle.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
Like Littlefinger's banging a chick, and then he's like, and we're going to invade the castle tomorrow.
And you're like, why is this happening? Like it just
because it's
so
HBO
weird.
and it has to be loose and everything has to be gross.
And they can do it.
I want to give a shout out to Matt Cat, not only obviously very active in the chat, always a good person to have on our team, but he says, Mantis is right. I started eating smaller portions and from what I normally eat and running every day since New Year's, and I've already lost 10 pounds. Good
awesome.
For you, man.
Yeah.
God bless, man.
Keep it up.
You just keep it up. And like, remember, you got to keep increasing your cardio. ever so often. Don't, there's some people who get so obsessed with cardio, they're like, I do 3 hours of cardio a day, and I'm like, you're gonna drop dead. There's no reason to.
Yeah.
But
I mean, your body can only metabolize but so much before you start to eat like your muscle and things, so
right,
you have to kind of know where you are.
We got Elliot is very awesome in the Brick Gang. What up? Holla at your boy. Ram L says, hey Mantis, just found your channel. Nice to see you again. Welcome, Ram. How are you? Mindy did Mindy Kaling do these Wago shots to lose all that weight? Wago shots?
I'm not sure. I've never heard of a Wago shot. It wouldn't surprise me if she took some kind of shortcut.
What's Velma's body count, and does it matter? No, it's not brought up, but I will.
It'll probably come up at some point. It's got to.
Oh, it absolutely will. Matt asks if they say Yas Queen. There's no Yas Queening because they make Velma a hostile force to the other members of the team.
Yes.
She hates them all, so she's not going to root on Daphne. She hates Daphne.
Right. She hates everybody. She hates her dad. She hates her mom.
Yeah, she's just.
She hates Freddie. She hates, her dad's boy or girlfriend, I guess, who's like a pregnant waitress who, for some random reason, in the middle of the first episode, takes her clothes off and they take pictures of her pregnant, naked body, which was kind of weird. Remember that? Like out of the blue.
Oh wait, hold on. This is my boy Ram. Oh my God, I didn't realize you were Ram. Yeah, we used to work at New York Sports Club together.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he was a fitness manager. What up, brother? How are you? How are you, brother? That's great to freaking see you, man. Happy New Year. I hope all is going good over there. Matt says, yeah, I've never seen anything important during sexy time. All I say is tell Daddy what you like. I don't talk about my schemes to kill the queen or to invade another kingdom while I'm banging, but
I can't imagine like anybody having this like a regular conversation. It's like, so like let's plan out our week like while we're in the middle of of smacking hips.
It's
like I feel like that noise would get a little distracting. I'd be like, what'd you say? Speak up a little bit.
HBO is known for its salaciousness. As a matter of fact, after this stream, I'm going to finish watching The Last of Us. Does it get salacious? Does it ever?
So what I love about this show is it's by far the best like video game to screen adaptation, in the sense that like it stays almost shot to shot very true to the story, and like the game doesn't have any of that in it. Like there's not any like just gratuitous random nonsense, and this feels like it's going to be super like very, very faithful to the game. It's almost like weird when you're watching like the show and like you're seeing like things that you've seen in the game, but they've changed it enough that it works. But it really is a testament to how good the story is told in the video game.
Okay, so it's not like executives look at it and they're like, what, the scene needs more sex.
No, But
the dad be fucking a zombie while he's talking.
Like they're not like, hey, let's have this group of zombies be naked, like coming out of the strip club. So like you have like
which in Game of Thrones they did that all the time. They're like, let's have these White Walkers be naked for no reason.
I think there'd be a huge backlash against because that show or that movie or not movie, that game has such a strong following.
Oh, these guys are strong. They tweet all the time. They talk about it. They're obsessed with it. It's kind of gross, actually.
Yeah, I mean it's so popular. Any deviation from like the core would probably piss off a lot of people.
So this one's funny. Lanio says, "Hey fam, at a holiday party, but I'm here for love. For starters, love at you, Laney. But the question is, what holiday? Are you at a Martin Luther King Jr. party? Oh, by the way, did you see that statue?
Isn't it Year of the Rabbit too? Oh, you mean the statue of like the weird
the embrace where it looks like all sorts of weird sexual shit is happening.
I thought it was a hand grabbing a boob at first. But
here's what it is: at a different angle, it all looks like different sexual. Like at one point, it looks like he's eating her out because she looks like a leg.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
It looks like he's like. I'm sorry, guys. Rogue Planet normally doesn't get this graphic, but in honor of Dr. King, we have to talk about this.
What is
Matt,
a Martin Luther King party like? I've never even heard of that before.
I mean, she
I'm
said
just
she's at a
curious.
holiday party. What
Right.
holiday is she celebrating? It's the 18th. It's like Christmas is over, yo.
Right.
Do you think there's any way that they can turn this Velma ship around, or is just head straight towards that iceberg? It has already crashed in the iceberg. I think that if ultimately, my verdict is, I believe that if they give it a second season, it's to save face. But the truth is, ratings wise and fan base, they cannot retain it. Only the most childish mind would give this would continue watching this. I really don't think there's much to salvage from this brand.
Yeah, the only way that the show could turn around is if they like just do complete 180s on a lot of the characters and like the way the show is built, and I just don't see that happening.
Right.
But what does surprise me is like, how can the show keep up the level of just blunt bad jokes? Like, from episode to episode, I'm like, can they really just fill this with that much bad nonsense? Like, can every episode be this bad? That's more what I'm curious about. Like, if that makes sense, because it's so bad. Like,
I said, I struggle to finish the episodes.
Yeah.
I find if I'm not offended by the jokes, and here's what I mean. I don't mean offended in a good way. Sometimes you can be offended by a joke in a good way where you're like, wow, that was offensive. I'm glad I experienced that. This is like offensive and like I'm like, oh, this is cringe, man. So because of that and the fact that like the show makes my skin crawl.
It's
not
really,
I wouldn't say it's a pleasurable experience.
Right.
I don't know if I could sit through it. And so I'm trying to compare, because even She-Hulk, one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life, was at least you could sit through an episode.
Oh, absolutely. Because I mean, She-Hulk had cringe moments, but it wasn't like every other line was a cringe moment.
Yes,
you know, it would be like
line of Velma.
Yeah,
they take they try to go for a joke that they just didn't serve up right, and it just
Yeah, so that in She-Hulk, that speech that she gives about like, you know, being angry, it's like super cringe, and everybody kind of famously knows is like really cringy about like being a woman, like how she has to control her anger and all that kind of stuff. It would be like, this show is that the entire time.
Yeah, every other line is
every other line is something, and most of the time the things that they're saying don't even make sense. Like, she'll be like, you know, most sitcoms are about like white men making a grab for more power, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not a thing.
That's what I'm saying. That's why
what shows are you watching?
Was hurt. I think she was serious.
Right.
I think a white guy broke her heart, and she's really upset, and she wants to.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like they push ideas and points that like A, either aren't relevant now because nobody thinks them, or B, like just are bizarrely not true anyway. So like I don't understand, like a lot of the jokes and attacks like just feel awkward because they don't make any sense.
Matt says, do you think Velma will find love, or are her ovaries gonna dry up? Like a certain YouTuber we both watch. I think her ovaries are done for.
Yeah. I mean, it would be a breath of fresh air for ovaries to do something in the show. I'd be happy.
Matt, they have not dropped the whole season. They've dropped the first 2 episodes.
Right. It's definitely worth like at least watch the first 60 seconds up until the actual words Velma appear. Like that 30 seconds is so hard to watch and so cringy. It's a perfect representation of like the entire show. Like the tone, the theme, the style of joke. I was floored. I was like, is it really this bad? Like nothing can be this bad.
And so there's more episodes of Velma to come, so I'm sure they're gonna have some very
like I'm gonna have to watch it now. Like
I'd rather read the comment. I'm not gonna read it aloud. Not that we don't curse or get nasty on this channel, but
I mean that's a fair statement. You know, I think it depends on the grade of sandpaper we're talking about. You know, like how coarse. If we're talking like, you know.
He said, sorry guys, my spell check is on overdrive. But honestly, so do you have any final thoughts on Velma? Do you want to have any warnings or other comments to tell people about the show? How did this show affect you emotionally, and like what is your takeaway from the show?
It's just like a soul numbing experience. Like if you can manage to get through it, it's not even like that it's boring. It's just like it zaps like every sense of life like out of you. So you should definitely watch it. It check it out at the very least if you haven't yet.
Yeah,
it's worth, because it really is that bad that it's really hard to even explain. Like you just have to like watch it. It's almost like it's almost like a show that
it's the Matrix of bad shows.
Yeah, it's
no one
like
can
one of
tell
those
you
shows
what
that would
it
be
is that you have to go in.
You have to go watch it. It would be a great show to like live stream an episode and like do like a reaction style like stream, because it's so shockingly bad that like you're just like, what? So
I should do a watch along for episode 3 or whatever.
Yeah,
when it comes out.
I would totally be down for it, because like I got so like I'm pretty calm now because I've had time to reflect. But as you know, I get heated pretty easily about certain things. This is a show that I got heated about the whole time I was watching it, so it would be an entertaining time.
I wanted to claw my eyes out. Yes, my takeaway is that I think that I believe that David Zaslav, the new CEO of Warner Discovery, is a more level-headed man than the people before him. I think the people before him were on the trend of doing what we talked about. They thought it was trendy to hire writers or creators who hate the product. And they're like, let's see what kind of craziness can come out of that. And I think that this is just like a byproduct of that age and not his age. Right. And I think he's a wise man, and unless he's contractually obligated, I have a feeling that he will put the end to this.
Yeah.
I'm actually hoping that this ruins Mindy Kaling's career.
I'm sure it will. Oh, I'm sure it'll. I think it'll knock her down a little bit for sure. I mean, to me, like the most ironic line, like this kind of sums everything up, is in that shower scene, one of the girls is like, all you really need for a good show is like great storytelling. And it's so ironic because the entire show has none of that.
Has none, no inkling.
So like, and what I can't tell is if the show is that self-aware that it knows that it's bad, or if it's making fun of itself for not having that, or if it's that unaware of it having a bad story that it just put that in there and like doesn't realize that it's, I could see it going either way.
The thing about Mindy Kaling is here's something I'm going to guess happened to her during her life, and I have no way of knowing the truth. I have a feeling that she lived in a world where people just constantly praised her and never told her what they really thought. I think they're like, look at what you wrote. You did so good. You did so, and I'm sure her career was like that too. Yeah,
she grew up wealthy, very wealthy. She comes from a very wealthy family. Went to Harvard. Went to Hollywood without any real challenge. So the irony is like the characters that she's hating on is her. Like she had the upbringing of like a very well-off, affluent,
and she's
privileged person, and she's
Daphne
dissing them.
And what's his face, Fred, or Evil, right?
Yeah, she is like her upbringing is basically Fred. And like she's like trying so hard not to be Fred, like I guess, or like I don't know. It's really weird.
Yo, Ram, good to see you, brother. You have a good one. You live that dream. Stop on through. Thank you for subbing. I'll sub to you. I don't know if you do videos, but I'd love to check it out. It's an honor to have you on board because I know you don't normally. You're not really into social media that much, but it's awesome to see you again, Ram. But yeah, so she's maybe the therapy that she's going through is that she's lashing out on herself. It's self-hatred.
Right. Like maybe she's guilty, or like she's trying to just like push herself away from that upbringing because she feels guilty about the fact that she's like this Indian minority, a female, and like her experience isn't fitting the narrative of like what people are like what's being peddled.
Do you remember that cringe joke about when they're at the funeral? And one of the girls comes up and they're like, I know you're thinking because she's a pretty girl, she deserved to die.
Right. Like, she was a slut. And they're all thinking, like I was like, what?
She deserved to die. And I'm like, what? And
I know. That was so weird. I was like, I've never thought that. I mean, I don't know. I've never even like heard that as a thing. Like, that's a great example of like a really like disconnected, like seemingly like mentality that she just assumes people have that she's trying to stab at that nobody really has. Like maybe back in the 80s when slasher films were around and like, the people who ran out in the woods to do it were the first to die. But like that hasn't been a thing for a long time.
Oh, she pretended to be African American to get into college. Look it up. It's a fact. Says hold up.
Oh.
I can believe that.
Whoops.
I can totally believe that. Oh my God.
Wow.
What you were saying, I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying that it's just, you know.
Oh, it's her brother. Her brother did that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Her brother. Yeah.
So you know what it is? I didn't want this to turn into a hate fest for her. Unfortunately, so much of her, this is like the signature of the artist is all over it.
It is.
And so, like, for instance, every time Star Wars sucks, I don't say I hate Kathleen Kennedy because, like, I'm like, you know, we don't know what she was involved in, what she isn't, or what she could have stopped, or what she didn't stop, right? And so I didn't want this to be this, but this is very clearly all Mindy Kaling.
Yes, I mean the title screen is Mindy Kaling is Velma, and like she has been very open and forward about the idea that like this is her character, this is her vision, this is her show, you know. It's. You know,
we corrected.
it's hard to do that.
I must be on a delay. Hold up, but yeah, we heard that. Yeah, Logie. Remember when horror movies were awesome and you could pleasure yourself to say?
I mean, when you know in Halloween, I'm not gonna lie. When you know Mike Myers kills his sister that first time, you know that moment before the knife went down, I was like, hey, this is kind of cool.
That says, "Oh, Kathleen Kennedy spits 3 times." But yeah, ultimately, I'm gonna give this a super thumbs down. What about you, Logie?
Oh, there's not enough like thumbs pointing in a downward direction for me. Yeah. I mean, it's Shyamalan level bad.
Yes, it is. And,
which for me is like the ultimate. You know, I can't say anything worse than like it's Shyamalan bad.
Yeah, Princess Vex says Matt is wild. Yes, he is wild. He's a wild time. That's why he's a good time. I will say I'm gonna not watch any of these others unless you guys are willing to do a watch along with me where we all watch at home and I'll be on stream. That might be fun and we could joke around about it. That would be a good time. But other than that, there's no way I would watch another one. You know what I mean?
I might have to sever through it. I might.
I mean, I'd sever through it if you guys were going to come with me and we're doing it as a group activity.
If we sever together, it'll definitely.
But here's what I'm saying. And I'm a guy who watches so much television. I watch so many movies. True. I have things on all the time. I watch stuff I just don't even care about. I couldn't put this on. You know, after
that's fair. I mean, life is short. You only have so many hours to live. Like, do you really want to waste your time back? Right. Like. And I mean, this shows you how much that I love you, Mantis. I watched each episode about 3 or 4 times today to make sure that I could, you know, talk about it. And
I was so impressed with you.
Yeah, watching it once was hard enough, but giving that much of my life that I will never get back to you should show you just how much of a blessing.
I know you love me.
I find your stream.
That's amazing to hear. Thank you so much.
So, I mean, that's like me watching a Shyamalan movie 3 times for you.
Oh my God, thank you. If you could ever think of a way for me to, you know, repay you, I'll watch some devil shit for you.
Sounds like a fair trade.
But before we head out, did you have any plugs or any shout outs you want to do?
No, I mean, the only place you'll really find me is in this chat. You know, I like to hang out there and cause trouble. Chances are, if you found me outside of the chat, it's probably the last time you'll be seen. So, you know, don't let that happen.
Yeah, this is not a man you want to stalk. But she says I'm gonna watch it. Don't do it, Bex. Bex. Bex, we are not kidding. I don't talk just to hear myself, hear my own words, man. Just don't. I
enjoy other people's pain, so I'm gonna totally say watch it. Like, check it out.
I would love to see what Bex has to say. That'll be certain.
Yeah, that would be very interesting, actually.
Guys, I'm gonna go, but I will say we universally hated this. We love you. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Please give us some comments. Keep tuning in to Rogue Planet every Wednesday-ish. And all the other streams and other things that I'm going to be doing here on this channel, both on Twitch and YouTube. Of course, you can always catch all my YouTube content also on Rumble and on Odyssey. We're getting Matt says great stream. Thank you so much. I'm gonna watch the back end of what is that show? The Last of Us, and then I believe me and Hold Up are going to be going live. If we don't, then we'll go live either the next day or after. You're gonna get a Last of Us stream one way or another. But I just have to
Awesome.
finish the damn thing first. But
It's a
until
great
next
show.
time, guys, ciao for motherfucking now. Thank you, Bex. Thank